I am a dark web bounty hunter. There is a reason why so many people go missing each year and are never heard of again. Despite the resources of entire communities and in some cases even governments, people still have the tendency to vanish without a trace. Ask yourself, do you really believe that some people just vanish out of thin air? In some cases it does happen, but when you look at the amount of missing people that a country has per year, you should know that there is a reason for it. Regardless of what happens to the person, or what kind of behind-the-scenes crimes they commit, the news is all the same. Family man this or charity giver that. I will tell you up front, most of the people who go missing deserve to go missing. And I can speak confidently about this because I am one of the reasons so many people have gone missing. I am what you call a BHK, which stands for Bounty Hunter Killer. There is a whole community of us that operate on the dark side of the internet. The reason I have the K at the end of my title is because some of the best trackers and hunters don't have the morals to kill the people they find. This has never been a problem for me and I am quite glad that my conscience can take it. The people who are willing to execute the target get paid significantly more than the ones who plant blackmailable evidence or set up the target for extortion. Oh yes, there are many ways to get rid of a victim once they have had a bounty placed on their head. It is easiest to think of them as prey instead of people. This is because nobody ends up on the hit list unless they have done some unspeakable crime. Most commonly we have child predators, serial killers, or very high-end drug pushers. But occasionally we have a doctor who sells back alley drugs or a boss who exploited their employees to the point that they pooled their money together for him to meet his demise. All in a day's work, as I suppose. Though I have numerous stories of my killings, which perhaps one day I will share with you, I am here to talk about the recent one. This happened last winter when I got contacted by my manager. For the sake of anonymity, let's just call him Chuck. Chuck is a certified tech whiz who handles all the details and transactions with my payments. I was skeptical about letting someone in who knows about me and what I do, but in time I realized it is the smarter move to have a tech guy on your team. Especially when dealing with the dark web and murder. Val, we got a child killer. Wichita, Kansas. Tracked him down, get the location of the bodies, waste him, $20,000. Attached to his message was some pictures of a torture set up in the body of a woman whose age I am not going to try and guess. Some serial killers really think posting their photos to the dark web is safe. This particular photo had a white male hand and several identifiable items in the background. It appears someone related to one of the victims had been searching that part of the internet in suspicion that she might show up there. Like I said, no one just goes missing. This case would be pretty straightforward. Chuck would analyze the criminal records of white men in Wichita as well as get the details on the items showing up in the tortured girl's photo. Raid bug spray, a tackle box of lures, in particular largemouth base, and a few disposable vapes. This would be a cakewalk for Chuck. I'm game. I can be in the area by the weekend. Hack security cameras and see if you can get a car that at one point or another visited a fishing shop, hardware store, and tobacco store. Let me know what you find. I was greeted with a response immediately. Knowing Chuck, this wasn't all that strange. He probably wouldn't have contacted me if he hadn't already found something. Let's just say that Chuck enjoys the hunt as much as I do, just in a different way. 2017 red Hyundai Sonata going in and out of several of the shops. White guy too, license plate is unreadable from the cameras. I can give you all the roads where I lose him. Luckily he passes tobacco and gifts every time he has movement. I think I can narrow you down to a few neighborhoods. Good luck. Yes, good old Chuck. Any mentioned details on how the child killer meets his demise? Make him suffer. This is how the conversation ended with me and Chuck. It was at this point that I headed down to my garage where all of my gear is located. It would be a bit of a drive to get to Kansas, so I would get ready early. Since this is the first time I am sharing one of my jobs, I will give you a rundown. In my garage I have a blacked out 2014 SRT Charger, all white with tinted windows. In the trunk I have my usual tools. Milwaukee chainsaw, 2 cases of table salt, Beretta Plus silencer, tripod, duffel bag. And most importantly my Soviet World War II era bomber jacket that I stole out of a Nazi's collection after he met his demise at my hands. This job was going to be creative though. I went to the back room of my garage and loaded up all the cages I would be needing. After getting everything aligned, I called it a night and got ready for next morning's drive. There are other trivial details that I could fill you in on, but we can skip to the good stuff. The real reason why I am sharing this and why you are reading this. Upon arriving at Tobacco and Gifts, I wasn't forced to play the waiting game long. I saw the red Sonata fairly early and copied down the license plate. It looked like he was heading back to the house or apartment where he lived. After getting the details to Chuck, I was game. Guy's name is Marvin, no criminal record, lives alone at. Google Earth shows that his driveway wraps around to a back basement entrance. I thought it would be tricky getting everything unloaded at his house, but I was in luck. After parking in the street, I only had to wait 6 hours until Marvin took a hike and left. This gave me plenty of time to pull my car around back, break into the back door, which did in fact lead to a basement, and unpack my things before returning to my car and moving it out of sight. Once that was all done, it was going to be the waiting game. I was able to get familiar with the surrounding of Marvin's basement and torture chamber. Except this time, it would be him. Run-down pornography posters hung from the walls. There was a strong smell of musty cigar smoke. I thought this guy was supposed to be a vapor. The rest of the room consisted of trash except one thing. There was a blood-stained table bolted to the floor with chains. This was the place where the woman's photos ended up on the dark web had met her fate. Alas, she will be avenged. I'll tell you this, Marvin was a bitch. When we walked downstairs face first into the end of my beta, he pissed himself and broke down. I didn't need to lecture him very long for him to lay on his table. Look Marvin, I am not going to hurt you. I know what you did and no police get involved if you do what I say. I need you on the table and chained so you don't try anything. No, I promise I won't hurt you. This wasn't entirely a lie. I wasn't going to be the one to hurt him. Once Marvin was thoroughly chained up, I opened up my duffel bag and tied 4 tourniquets around each of his limbs. Next I opened up the tripod and began to record. Lastly, I went to the cages in the corner that had my bomber jacket over them and brought them over to the table. 4 cages total. In the first cage is the infamous Arizona bark scorpion. I got it as a pet from an ex-girlfriend who ironically knew I loved researching arachnids. In the second cage is my Brazilian wandering spider. This one was actually tough to get, but I had a connection in Colombia I met from the deep web who dealt with exotic animals. In the third cage, the most boring in my opinion, is my pet rattlesnake. Eastern diamondback to be more specific. I call him Salty, and in the fourth cage is the non-lethal giant desert centipede. I will be honest with you, the thing scares the shit out of me. Even now I am a little wigged out that I have it in my house. Marvin at this point gets the gist of what is about to happen. He can't scream or cry because of the gag in his mouth, but the eyes say enough. I double check the camera, make sure the tourniquets are nice and tight, then begin. I put on replica gloves and grab Sally first. I bring her over to old Marvin's right foot and get her all riled up. When she starts getting snappy, I let her sink her fangs into Marvin's Achilles tendon. I should mention that his feet and hands are white from lack of blood at this point, but his reaction says it all. I let Sally get a few more bites into his foot before I return her to her cage. Bark scorpion time. This one is simple because you just need to hold it by the stinger and stick it where you want. This one goes right into the whiteness of the bottom of his foot. Spider time. As I carefully pick up the wandering spider, it bites my gloved hand a few times. This is a bit of a bummer because I want her to save all of her venom for Marvin's right wrist. Either way, she gets a good few bites in that I think did the job. Lastly, we have a centipede. Now I have to admit, I wasn't going to be picking the thing up if I didn't have to. Marvin at this point was almost passed out, so before bringing him back to full consciousness I untied his hand and stuck it into the centipede's terrarium. After viciously attacking the hand, Marvin got all antsy and started fighting with me. It did him no good. Alright now Marvin, on the count of 3. I grabbed all 4 loose ends of the tourniquets and smiled at the camera. 1, 2, 3 snap. All at once 4 different types of venom, 3 lethal, shot into Marvin's bloodstream. I walked over to the camera and got his reaction. Realistically only the first 10 minutes were entertaining. Back and forth Marvin twitched at his spine like he was stretching to do gymnastics. He was fighting his restraints, biting at his lips, and making a kind of screeching noise. Marvin took a while to kick the can. When I walked out of that basement to fetch the car, it was now daylight. I sent Chuck a quick message. "Oh my, that boy is dead." He responded, "Money in that bank." Fast forward again and Marvin didn't even make the news. His death was completely unremarkable to public attention. Something that you find out all about when you are in this field long enough. Some people dying just doesn't bother anyone. No one cares, and even if they did run his strange deaths, no one would remember after a few days. At least none that didn't know him. I had also completely forgotten to get the girls' burial locations. Oh well. You see, I don't do this for justice. I don't even do this for a paycheck. I do this job because I am completely vile and my bloodlust just can't be contained. Even though this is just my first murder I am sharing with you, there are a few lessons to be taken away from this. 1. I am a total psychopath. 2. I make my victims' pain sharp and deep. And 3. Feel free to commit crimes and fuck people over. Just make sure that you do not end up on my list of potential bounties.